I can't do this anymore. They don't know what they've done to me, what we've all done. If this ever gets out, it'll destroy everything. Elvis, you need to think about what you're saying here. There are consequences too. Tom, I'm already destroyed. The question is, do I take everyone else down with me? That recording was made on August 15th, 1977, exactly 1 hour before Elvis Presley was found dead at Graceland. For over 45 years, only 3 people knew it existed. 2 of them are now dead. The third person just broke their silence. What you're about to hear isn't just the story of Elvis's final hour. It's the revelation that will rewrite everything you thought you knew about the king of rock and roll. Because that tape, it wasn't a confession of guilt. It was a declaration of war. But before we reveal what Elvis was really planning in his final moments and why it may have cost him his life, we need to go back to where it all began to unravel. 3 months earlier, when Elvis Presley walked into a Memphis recording studio at 3 in the morning. He wasn't there to make music. He was there to document the biggest scandal in entertainment history. And his own role in covering it up. May 15th, 1977, 3 a.m. Jerry Schilling had been Elvis Presley's friend since they were teenagers playing football in the projects of North Memphis, part of the inner circle they called the Memphis Mafia. Jerry had seen Elvis at his highest highs and his lowest lows. He thought he'd seen everything. He was wrong. That night, Jerry was staying at Graceland while Elvis was in Nashville. Lisa Marie was visiting her mother in California. The mansion was eerily quiet, just Jerry and the night security. Elvis had asked Jerry to grab some medication from his private bathroom, nothing unusual there. Elvis's pill dependency was an open secret among his closest friends. But what Jerry found wasn't pills. Behind the toilet, a section of marble tile was loose. Jerry's curiosity got the better of him. He pried it open, expecting maybe a hidden stash of cash or jewelry. Instead, he found a metal box, about the size of a shoebox, wrapped in plastic bags. Inside that box was a collection that would make Jerry's hands shake as he held each item. Photographs, financial documents, tape recordings, and a handwritten list of names of people who were supposed to be dead. People who had died in suspicious circumstances around various celebrities over the past 15 years. Overdoses, car accidents, plane crashes, but according to these documents, they were very much alive, living under new identities, with new social security numbers, new addresses. At the top of that list was a name that made Jerry's blood run cold. Lisa Marie's kidnapper, staged May 1975. Jerry sat on the bathroom floor, staring at that piece of paper as a horrible realization washed over him. The kidnapping threat against Elvis's 9-year-old daughter that had terrorized the Presley family for 3 weeks in 1975 had been fake, orchestrated, staged by people within Elvis's own organization. And according to these documents, Elvis had known about it, had paid for it, had used his own daughter's terror as part of some larger scheme. But what could possibly be worth traumatizing your own child? What could be so important that the king of rock and roll would sacrifice his daughter's sense of safety? Jerry kept digging through the box, and with each new document, the scope of what he was uncovering became more terrifying. Bank account numbers traced to shell companies, photographs of Elvis meeting with men Jerry didn't recognize, men in expensive suits with dead eyes. Financial records showing massive payments to people listed as consultants and security specialists. But it was the tapes that made Jerry's stomach turn. Hours and hours of recorded conversations, Elvis's voice, but different, harder, colder, discussing things that sounded like they came from a crime movie, not the life of a beloved entertainer. The Miami situation is handled. The witness won't be a problem anymore. We need the Philadelphia drop moved to Tuesday. Too much heat on the weekend shipment. Tell Chicago that Elvis is cooperating fully. No need for additional pressure. Jerry listened in horrified fascination as his childhood friend discussed operations that sounded like organized crime. like Elvis Presley, the man who sang gospel hymns and loved his mama, was running some kind of criminal enterprise, or was being used as a front for one. The more Jerry listened, the clearer it became that Elvis wasn't giving orders. He was taking them. The voice on the other end of most conversations belonged to Colonel Tom Parker, Elvis's manager, but Parker wasn't alone. There were other voices, other names mentioned, a whole network of people using Elvis's fame, his access, his trusted public image for purposes that had nothing to do with entertainment. And somewhere in the middle of it all was the staged kidnapping of Lisa Marie Presley. Jerry found the full file on that operation buried at the bottom of the box. Photographs of the men who had been hired to make the threats, copies of the ransom notes that had never been sent to police, a detailed timeline of how the kidnapping plot had been designed to unfold over exactly 3 weeks, long enough to terrify Elvis and Priscilla, but not long enough to attract serious FBI attention. The purpose was listed in clinical, businesslike language that made Jerry sick. Loyalty test, subjects' willingness to prioritize organization security over family welfare. Elvis had been tested, like a lab rat, and he had passed their test by keeping quiet, by not going to authorities, by allowing his daughter to live in fear for 21 days while he secretly knew she was never in any real danger. What kind of father does that? What kind of man chooses protecting criminals over protecting his own child? Jerry was still sitting on that bathroom floor at 6 in the morning when he heard Elvis's Cadillac pulling up the circular drive. He quickly shoved everything back into the box, replaced the loose tile, and tried to act normal. But when Elvis walked into that bathroom and saw Jerry's face, he knew immediately that something had changed. "You found it, didn't you?" Elvis asked quietly. His voice was different than Jerry had ever heard it, tired, defeated, but also relieved. Jerry couldn't speak, he just nodded. Elvis closed the bathroom door and leaned against it, as if he was afraid someone might try to get in. "Thank God," he whispered. "Finally someone else knows. Jerry, I can't carry this alone anymore." "Elvis, what is all this? What have you gotten yourself into?" "What have I gotten into?" Elvis laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Jerry, I didn't get into anything. I was born into it. The day I signed my first recording contract, the day I trusted Tom Parker with my career, I signed away my soul without even knowing it." Elvis sat down on the edge of the bathtub and put his head in his hands. "They own me, Jerry, have owned me since 1956. Every song, every movie, every concert. It's all been a cover for something much bigger and much darker than anything I ever imagined." "Then why didn't you go to the police, the FBI?" Elvis looked up at Jerry with eyes that seemed much older than his 42 years. "Because the police are part of it. The FBI knows about it. Hell, Jerry, some of the biggest names in Washington are part of it. You think a kid from Tupelo can fight that kind of power?" Jerry felt the room spinning around him. "Elvis, what are you telling me?" "I'm telling you that Elvis Presley, the entertainer, died a long time ago. What's left is just a front man for an organization that uses celebrities to move money, to influence politics, to eliminate people who ask too many questions." Elvis stood up and paced the small bathroom like a caged animal. "And Jerry, they're going to kill me for what I'm about to do." "What are you about to do?" Elvis stopped packing and looked directly at Jerry. "I'm going to bring it all down, every last one of them, even if it destroys me, even if it destroys my family, because I can't live with what I've done anymore." Jerry felt a chill run down his spine. "Elvis, what exactly did you do?" Elvis was quiet for a long moment. When he finally spoke, his voice was barely a whisper. "I helped them kill Bobby Kennedy." Jerry stared at Elvis in complete disbelief. "What did you just say?" Elvis closed his eyes and took a shuddering breath. "You heard me, Robert F. Kennedy, June 5, 1968, the Ambassador Hotel in Los Angeles. I was there that night, Jerry. I was supposed to be there." "Elvis, you're scaring me. What are you talking about?" "Sit down, please, because what I'm about to tell you, it's going to change everything you think you know about me, about this whole damn industry." Jerry remained standing, his back pressed against the bathroom door. Just tell me. Elvis began packing again, but slower now, like every step was painful. There's something called the network, Jerry. It's not organized crime exactly. It's not government exactly. It's something worse. It's both, together. I don't understand. Picture this. You're a major record executive in the 1950s. Rock and roll is exploding, and suddenly there's more money moving through the music industry than anyone imagined. Cash transactions, untraceable payments, kids buying records with bills their parents can't track. It's a money launderer's paradise. Elvis stopped packing and looked directly at Jerry. But you need someone trustworthy to be the face of it. Someone clean, someone America loves and trusts. Someone who can meet with politicians, with business leaders, with anyone you need access to. Jerry felt his stomach drop. Someone like Elvis Presley. Exactly like Elvis Presley. Young, naive, grateful for any opportunity. Managed by a man with connections to people I didn't even know existed back then. Colonel Parker. Tom Parker isn't just my manager, Jerry. He's my handler. Has been since day one. Every major decision in my career, every business deal, every person I meet. It all goes through the network first. Elvis sat back down on the bathtub edge, suddenly looking exhausted. At first, I didn't know. How could I? I was a kid from Mississippi who could barely read a contract. All I knew was that I was getting famous and making money, and Colonel Parker was making it all happen. When did you figure it out? Slowly, little things that didn't make sense. Why certain songs got radio play when better ones didn't. Why I was always meeting with men in suits who weren't from the record company. Why there were always cash payments that didn't match what the books showed. Elvis's voice grew quieter, more haunted. But the real wake-up call came in 1967. I was at a party in Hollywood, one of those industry things where everyone important shows up. I saw J. Edgar Hoover there, talking to Colonel Parker like they were old friends. Jerry's blood ran cold, the FBI director. The same, and Jerry, they weren't talking about my music. They were talking about operations and assets and national security implications. I started paying closer attention after that. That's when you started recording conversations. Elvis nodded grimly. I bought the equipment myself, hid it everywhere, my dressing rooms, my cars, even here at Graceland, because I started to realize that I wasn't just a singer being used to launder money. I was being used as bait. Bait for what? Think about it, Jerry, who has access to everyone. Politicians, business leaders, foreign dignitaries, union bosses, civil rights leaders, who can get a private meeting with almost anyone in the world just by asking. Jerry's voice came out as a whisper, Elvis Presley. Right, and what if some of those people were asking inconvenient questions? What if they were investigating things the network didn't want investigated? What if they needed to be neutralized? Elvis pulled out a photograph from his shirt pocket, the same one Jerry had seen in the hidden box. J. Edgar Hoover shaking hands with Colonel Parker at what looked like an elegant party. In the background, barely visible, was a younger man with distinctive hair and a familiar profile. That's Robert Kennedy, Elvis said, his voice barely audible. This photo was taken on June 2nd, 1968, 3 days before he was killed. Jerry's hands were shaking as he took the photograph. Elvis, please tell me you're not saying what I think you're saying. Bobby Kennedy had been investigating corruption in the music industry, labor union connections, organized crime money flowing through record companies, political payoffs. He was getting close to exposing the network. Elvis's voice broke slightly, so they asked me to help. Help how? Kennedy was a huge Elvis fan. His kids loved my music. It was easy to arrange a chance meeting at the Ambassador Hotel. I was supposed to be performing in Los Angeles anyway, so it looked completely natural. Jerry felt sick. You were supposed to meet with him that night. Not just meet with him. I was supposed to get him alone, away from his security detail. Just for a few minutes, they said. just long enough for some business associates to have a private conversation with him about backing off the investigation. Elvis stood up abruptly and punched the bathroom wall hard enough to make Jerry jump. I believed them. I actually believed that's all it was going to be, a conversation. But you didn't do it. I tried to. God help me, Jerry, I tried to. I went to the hotel that night. I found Kennedy after his victory speech. I started to approach him. Elvis's voice trailed off, and Jerry could see tears forming in his eyes. What stopped you? His son, David Kennedy. He was there with his father, and when he saw me, his whole face just lit up. This kid, maybe 14 years old, and he was so excited to meet Elvis Presley. He started telling me about his favorite songs, asking me to sign autographs for his friends. Elvis wiped his eyes roughly, and I looked at this boy, and I thought about my own daughter, and I realized what I was really there to do. I was there to help them murder this kid's father. So you left. I ran like a coward. I got out of that hotel as fast as I could and flew straight back to Memphis. I told Colonel Parker that I couldn't find Kennedy, that he'd left before I could make contact. Elvis's voice grew hollow. 20 minutes later, Bobby Kennedy was dead, shot by a lone gunman in a kitchen hallway, exactly where I was supposed to lead him. Jerry felt the room spinning around him. Elvis, are you telling me that if you had followed through? If I had done what they asked me to do, Bobby Kennedy would have died 20 minutes earlier, and I would have been standing right next to him when it happened. Elvis looked directly at Jerry. They were going to frame me for his assassination. The silence in that bathroom was deafening. Jerry struggled to process what he was hearing. But Jerry, here's the thing that's been eating me alive for 9 years. They didn't need me. They killed him anyway. All my cowardice accomplished was saving my own skin while an innocent man still died. Elvis's voice grew harder, more determined. But now I know it wasn't just Bobby Kennedy. The network has been using celebrities to get close to targets for years. Musicians, actors, athletes, anyone with fame and access. And some of them didn't refuse like I did. Jerry found his voice. How many people are we talking about? Elvis pulled out another document from the hidden box, a list of names and dates that made Jerry's blood run cold. Jerry, Elvis said quietly, what I'm about to show you is going to prove that some of the most famous deaths in American history weren't accidents, overdoses, or random violence. They were assassinations carried out by the network, using celebrities as unwitting accomplices. And now they know that you know. Elvis nodded grimly. They've known for months that I've been recording everything, which means you're next. Elvis handed Jerry the document with trembling hands. Before you look at this, you need to understand something. Once you see these names, once you know what I know, there's no going back. You'll be in just as much danger as I am. Jerry took the paper without hesitation. I'm already in danger just being here, aren't I? Yes, you are. Jerry unfolded the document, and what he saw made his knees buckle. It was a list, handwritten in multiple different inks, as if it had been compiled over years. Each entry had a name, a date, a location, and a single word, completed. Buddy Holly, February 3rd, 1959, Clear Lake, Iowa, completed. Sam Cooke, December 11th, 1964, Los Angeles, California, completed. Otis Redding, December 10th, 1967, Madison, Wisconsin, completed. And at the bottom of the list, in Elvis's own handwriting, Jimi Hendrix, September 18th, 1970, London, England, completed. Jerry's voice came out as a whisper. Elvis, you were involved in Jimi Hendrix's death. Elvis collapsed onto the bathroom floor like his legs couldn't hold him anymore. Not directly, but yes. God help me, yes. How? The same way they tried to use me with Bobby Kennedy. Hendrix was asking too many questions about the industry, about who really controlled the music business. He was planning to start his own record label, completely independent. He was going to expose how the major labels were connected to organized crime. Elvis's voice was hollow, mechanical, like he was reciting a confession he'd memorized. So they asked me to reach out to him, to invite him to a private party in London where he could meet some investors for his new label. Musicians trust other musicians, Jerry, especially when Elvis Presley calls personally. Jerry felt bile rising in his throat. You made the call. I made the call. I told him about this great opportunity, these people who wanted to help fund his vision for independent music. I even offered to perform at his first concert once the label was established. Elvis looked up at Jerry with eyes that seemed hollow. Jimmy was so excited. He kept thanking me for believing in him, for wanting to help. He said it meant everything to have Elvis Presley in his corner. What happened at the party? I wasn't there. I was supposed to be, but at the last minute, Colonel Parker said there had been a scheduling conflict. I found out later that there was no party. Jimmy went to the address I gave him, and instead of investors, he found. Elvis couldn't finish the sentence. Jerry's voice was barely audible. He found his killers. The official story was an overdose, but Jimi Hendrix wasn't a drug user like that. He smoked marijuana, sure, but he wasn't into hard drugs. The coroner said he choked on his own vomit after taking sleeping pills, but you know that's not what happened. Elvis nodded miserably. They killed him because I led him to them, just like they almost killed Bobby Kennedy because I was supposed to lead him to them. The only difference is I got cold feet with Kennedy. With Jimmy, I followed through. Jerry stared at the list in his hands. How many others? That's just the ones I know about for certain, the ones where celebrities were used as bait. But Jerry, there are others. Musicians who died in accidents right before they were supposed to testify about industry corruption. Singers who overdosed right after they started asking questions about where their money was really going. Elvis pulled himself up off the floor and began packing again. The network has been systematically eliminating anyone who threatens to expose their operations, and they've been using people like me to do it. Why are you telling me all this now? Why not years ago? Because something changed 3 months ago. They came to me with another assignment. Jerry felt his stomach drop. Who? Stevie Wonder. The name hung in the air between them like a death sentence. Stevie's been asking questions about Motown's financial structure, about Berry Gordy's connections to certain investors. He's been talking to journalists, to federal investigators. The network wants him silenced. Jerry's voice came out as a croak, and they want you to. They want me to invite him to a collaboration session here at Graceland. Just me, him, and some industry executives who want to discuss a special project. Elvis stopped packing and looked directly at Jerry. But I can't do it anymore. I won't, even if it means they kill me. That's why you've been recording everything. For 2 years, I've been documenting every conversation, every order, every operation I've been told about. I've got Colonel Parker on tape discussing murders like they're business transactions. I've got phone calls with network operatives planning accidents for musicians who won't cooperate. I've got enough evidence to bring down the entire system. Elvis walked over to the loose tile and pulled out another item Jerry hadn't seen before, a small key. This opens a safety deposit box at First National Bank in downtown Memphis. Inside that box are copies of every tape I've made, every document I've collected, every piece of evidence that proves the network exists and what they've done. Jerry felt a sudden surge of hope. Then we can go to the authorities, the real authorities, someone outside of their influence. Elvis laughed bitterly. Jerry, you still don't understand the scope of this thing. Remember that photo of J. Edgar Hoover with Colonel Parker? Hoover wasn't investigating the network. He was part of it. Then who? There has to be someone. There is, but it's going to cost me everything. My career, my reputation, probably my life. Elvis sat back down on the bathtub and pulled out one final document, a letter written on White House stationery. President Carter doesn't know about the network yet, but he's been investigating corruption in federal agencies, including the FBI. His people have been asking questions about connections between organized crime and the entertainment industry. Jerry read the letterhead with growing amazement. Elvis, this is from the president's office. 2 weeks ago, I reached out through back channels, told them I had information about systematic corruption in the music industry with connections to federal agencies. They want to meet. When? Originally, we were supposed to meet next month, but Jerry, they're not going to give me next month. Colonel Parker knows I've been stalling on the Stevie Wonder assignment. He knows something is wrong. Elvis's voice grew urgent. That's why I had to tell you everything tonight, because tomorrow I'm going to give Colonel Parker an ultimatum. Either the network lets me and my family disappear quietly, or I go public with everything I know. Jerry felt panic rising in his chest. Elvis, if you threaten them directly. They're going to kill me, I know. But Jerry, what choice do I have? I can't keep being their weapon. I can't be responsible for another Jimi Hendrix. Elvis stood up and walked to the bathroom door, then turned back to Jerry one final time. If something happens to me, I need you to get that safety deposit box key to President Carter's people. Promise me. Jerry took the key with shaking hands. Elvis, there has to be another way. There is one other possibility, Elvis said quietly, but it would mean Elvis Presley would have to die publicly while I disappear completely. Start over somewhere, they can never find me. Jerry stared at his childhood friend. You're talking about faking your own death. It's the only way to get out alive, while still making sure the truth comes out eventually. Elvis opened the bathroom door, and Jerry could hear the sounds of Graceland stirring to life, security guards changing shifts, kitchen staff preparing breakfast. The question is, Elvis whispered, do I have enough time to arrange it before they realize I'm about to betray them? As if in answer to his question, they both heard the distinctive sound of Colonel Parker's Cadillac pulling up the circular drive. Too late, Elvis breathed. He's here. Jerry had kept this secret for 46 years. But in 2023, construction workers renovating the basement of RCA's old Nashville studios found something that changed everything. Hidden behind a false wall, they discovered a room that wasn't on any building plans. Inside were dozens of tape reels, some labeled with the names of dead celebrities and some labeled with names of people who are still alive today. That discovery is why Jerry Schilling finally decided to speak. The network didn't die with Elvis, Jerry tells me, his voice still shaking after all these years. It evolved, it adapted, and when I saw those tapes being found in Nashville, I realized the time for silence was over. But to understand why those 2023 tapes matter, we have to go back to August 16, 1977, the day the world believes Elvis Presley died. That morning, when Colonel Parker arrived at Graceland, Elvis made a decision that would determine not just his fate, but the fate of everyone he loved. Jerry, Elvis whispered, as they heard Parker's footsteps echoing through the mansion. No matter what happens in the next few hours, promise me you'll get that key to the right people. Jerry nodded, slipping the safety deposit box key into his pocket. Elvis walked out of that bathroom like he was walking to his execution, and maybe he was. The confrontation between Elvis and Colonel Parker lasted 3 hours. Jerry couldn't hear most of it from where he was hiding in the kitchen, but the parts he could hear still haunt him. You've been recording our conversations, Elvis. Yes. For how long? Long enough. Do you understand what that means, what you've forced us to do? There was a long silence. Then Elvis's voice, steady and resolved. I understand perfectly, Tom. The question is, do you understand what I'm prepared to do about it? What happened next changed everything Jerry thought he knew about Elvis Presley's final day. Colonel Parker presented Elvis with what he called a generous offer. Elvis could disappear, fake his death, take his family, and live quietly somewhere the network would never find him. All he had to do was destroy the recordings and never speak about what he knew. Elvis's response was immediate. No. No. I won't run anymore, Tom. I won't hide anymore. And I sure as hell won't let you people keep using celebrities to murder innocent people. Jerry heard the sound of furniture being moved, then Colonel Parker's voice, colder than he'd ever heard it. Then you've chosen death over exile. But Elvis had one final card to play. Actually, Tom, I've chosen something else entirely. Elvis had spent the previous 2 weeks not just collecting evidence, but making copies. Lots of copies. The safety deposit box Jerry knew about was just one of 7 locations where Elvis had hidden complete sets of recordings and documents. More importantly, Elvis had already made contact with President Carter's people. Not just the initial reaching out Jerry knew about, but a full briefing. The meeting was scheduled for the next day, August 17th, 1977. By this time tomorrow, Elvis told Colonel Parker, everything you've built will be exposed. Every murder, every cover-up, every politician and FBI agent who took your money, all of it. Colonel Parker's response was swift and brutal. By this time tomorrow, you'll be dead. Maybe, Elvis said calmly, but it won't matter because I've already won. This is where Jerry's account of that day becomes almost impossible to believe, but he swears every word is true. Elvis had recorded his final conversation with Colonel Parker. Not just recorded it, he had broadcast it live to a secure government recording facility that President Carter's intelligence team had set up specifically for whistleblowers in organized crime cases. The entire confrontation was being captured in real time by federal agents. Tom, Elvis said, his voice carrying clearly through the hidden microphones, I want you to tell the people listening exactly how the network operates. Start with Buddy Holly. For the next hour, Colonel Parker, apparently not realizing they were being recorded, laid out the entire structure of the network's celebrity assassination program. Names, dates, methods, financial structures, political connections, everything. It was the most comprehensive confession in criminal history. But Colonel Parker had one final surprise of his own. Elvis, he said, his voice suddenly calm again, did you really think we didn't know about your little recording setup? Did you think we hadn't planned for this exact scenario? Jerry heard Elvis's sharp intake of breath. You've been broadcasting to a government facility, all right, but that facility has been under network control for 6 months. Every word you've said today has been recorded by our people, not yours. The devastating realization hit Elvis like a physical blow. His grand gesture of defiance had been turned against him. Instead of exposing the network, he had just provided them with evidence of his own betrayal. The federal agents you thought you were working with, Colonel Parker continued, work for us. The meeting tomorrow with President Carter's people, they're our people too. Jerry could hear Elvis's voice breaking, then it's over. Not quite, you still have one choice left. Colonel Parker's final offer was the most diabolical thing Jerry had ever heard. Elvis could die that evening, officially from a heart attack brought on by prescription drug abuse. His family would be left alone, his daughter would inherit his estate, and his reputation would remain intact. The alternative was a very public scandal that would destroy not just Elvis, but Priscilla, Lisa Marie, and every innocent person who had ever worked for him. If you refuse, Colonel Parker said coldly, we'll release edited versions of your recordings that make it look like you were the one running the assassination program. Elvis Presley will be remembered as the biggest criminal in American entertainment history. Elvis was trapped, completely, utterly trapped. But Jerry reveals that Elvis made one final secret decision that Colonel Parker never discovered. In the 18 hours between that confrontation and when Elvis's body was found, Elvis managed to create one more set of recordings. Not evidence tapes this time, but messages. Personal messages to specific people, explaining the truth and hidden in locations that only those people would know to look. Elvis didn't die from a drug overdose, Jerry says quietly. He died from a broken heart, but in those final 18 hours, he found a way to ensure that someday the real story would come out. Jerry opens a manila envelope and removes a document, a handwritten letter from Elvis, dated August 17th, 1977. Jerry, the letter reads, "If you're reading this, then I'm gone and it's time for the truth. I couldn't stop them from killing me, but I made sure they couldn't kill the story. The 7 locations I told you about, only 6 of them exist. The 7th location is you. You're the final recording, Jerry. You're my voice from beyond the grave." Jerry looks directly at the camera. Those tapes they found in Nashville in 2023, they weren't the originals. They were copies Elvis planted, knowing that someday someone would renovate that building and find them. He wanted to make sure that even decades later, there would be physical evidence to back up what I'm telling you now. Elvis Presley didn't die from an overdose. He died from hope. Hope that someday someone would be brave enough to tell his real story. Hope that his death wouldn't be in vain if it eventually led to justice. Jerry's voice grows stronger, more determined. The network that killed Elvis is still operating today. Different faces, different methods, but the same system. Those 2023 tapes prove it, and now that I've spoken, they'll come for me too. But I'm not afraid anymore, because Elvis taught me that some secrets are too important to keep. Some truths are worth dying for. Jerry stares directly into the camera. The king is dead. Long live the truth. Elvis Presley spent his final 18 hours trying to find the courage to tell a truth that would outlive him. Jerry Schilling spent 46 years carrying that burden alone, waiting for the right moment to honor his friend's sacrifice. If you believe the world deserves to know what really happened to the king of rock and roll, share this story, because the network Jerry described is counting on us to stay silent. The question is, will we prove Elvis's hope was justified, or will his final message die with Jerry too?